in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the KD Ratio. It's your designated podcast for all things nerd. My name is Kyle, and with me tonight I have
Dylan
and William.
And tonight we are going to be talking about one thing in particular, and then wherever else the conversation goes, The Last of Us.
The last of Us.
The Last of Us.
for this season.
Forever. HBO Max is over. You
They've
didn't hear?
Potentially the last time I watched the show.
Potentially. I'll be into it. Let's just go around, Dylan.
Should we start off with a short little spoiler-free review?
No, fuck no. Dive into it.
Spoilers. All right, if you're listening, spoilers. Here we go.
Spoilers. I really like the episode. I do personally think the game did it better, but that's just because of the type of medium it is. You feel more involved. You feel more attached. It's more personal. But I do.
It's more of a struggle to save Ellie.
Yeah, you feel really invested in it, and in the game, and we'll talk about the full series. In the game, it addresses my main issue with the television show. You're with Bill. You're with Joel and Ellie the entire time, and you really get to see how important they are to each other. And while yes, we do get to see that, my biggest gripe with the series is we didn't get to see it enough.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good episode, and I think the acting at the end was great. The way that Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal did that final scene of where Ellie knows he's lying, but she's trying to accept that it's not a lie, just so she's able to live.
Her consent was taken out of it, but that being said, she probably would have chosen to
See,
go
and
through
that's
with it.
I was talking with I watched it with somebody who never played the games, my dad, and I got his opinion, and he really liked it. He said he really liked the show, but his biggest gripe with the ending, and I mean it's just a writing aspect. It's movies do this all the time. Is why not tell Ellie, and then have her come in and talk to Joel, and justify what's going on. Why Ellie would have been down to sacrifice her life for a cure. So why, we knocked her out and she won't even know what's going on. She's just going to die.
Yeah.
They didn't want to take that chance.
But, true, but it's worse than what they're already doing.
My question is, why keep Joel alive at all? But then we're poking holes at a phenomenal story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what I want to get into. What I want to get into, the story is well done, and I appreciated the show is 10 out of 10. There's no two ways about it.
Real quick, let's go around the episode. Good.
Episode's good. I have definitely my complaints, but episode was great.
What about you, Kyle?
Yeah, I would lean towards good.
Okay.
This wasn't actually, weirdly though, wasn't my favorite of the series.
I would agree with that.
But it was about as close to the game and respectful to the source material as you probably could have got. And some of the things they did change, I get why, knowing the context of everything that's going to come in season 2.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah, for me, this episode was exactly plagued with what I thought it would be going into it, which was pacing. And I was a little upset that they didn't spend more time showing that relationship build on the front end. Like, Ellie's sort of, she's haunted by what the fuck just happened, right? So that's what you see in the beginning.
The cannibal.
And then you see Joel, like, unlocked, and he's talking way more than he's ever talked before. And it's like, oh, this is cool. And then, boom, tear gas goes off, or, flash grenade goes off. He wakes up, and then in a matter of, like, 4 minutes, he gets almost walked out the building, kills everyone, and then he's driving. And it's like, man, that's such a, I wish it gave, I felt like when I played the games, I had more time to think about it. Obviously you did, because you have to, that's a very tough mission to go fight your way through all that shit. But like, you have more time to think about like the weight of it. what do you get from the news that like oh, the cordyceps are in her brain, so then you have to put it together, and then they like are walking him out. It's like 35 seconds to make a decision.
Well, that's about how fast that happens in the game. That part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like as you play as him, as you're like killing everyone, but way before you
Well,
get
the
to the
decision, the decision for
Rebel,
Joel to
yeah.
go like, okay, what the fuck? Let me fight back. That happens about just as fast in the show as it does in the game. That's about that fast. But the fight to get to Ellie, of course, because
doctor, wouldn't
a
show
game.
well on TV.
It's a game. It's a lot longer, and there's a lot more people, and that's where I think you're getting that time to think about it, because it's much more of a. That was my main complaint in the show. Was like, it felt kind of weird how one man army Joel became. Where
No
like
joke.
one episode he's struggling fighting off one dude with a baseball bat, and the next one he's fucking taking on an army like fucking the Terminator.
But that's the power of love.
I guess. And the difference between the show and the game, and I think this was a purposeful change, because in the game, I don't know if it's because you spend much more time playing as Joel because of all the gameplay that's involved with it, but it was much less gray area for me in the game. In the game, it was like, fuck the Fireflies. They all were presented much more like evilly,
Yeah.
and it was like, take them out. And then the show, I feel like they went out of their way to be like, okay, you can understand why Joel's doing this, but it's not a good thing,
Yeah.
and they were doing that in the show, and I know why they're doing that, because number two, they're gonna have to win the audience over, and they're gonna have to really make you understand why what happens to Joel, and so I get why they did it. I just, for me, it was hard for me I was like, fuck these guys. Why are they trying so hard to? It's like playing like he's like the monster in a horror film.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get why they did it. But the game, it was much less of a choice, or much less of a hard decision for me.
Yeah, and I mean, I would agree with you there. I feel like, in the game, you spend a lot of time as Joel, and a little bit of time as Ellie, but you really get to see Joel, what he went through, and you get to see his character change from a more reserved person to a less reserved person. And I feel like the show showed that. I don't think it worked as well, because I felt like there was a more gradual change from not being open to open, as the show was just like, all of a sudden this last episode, he's like, boom, like really open.
Yeah, I guess they just kind of boil it down to he had a near-death experience.
Yeah.
I could have used half an episode on episode 8, or of them, or episode 7 of them in the mall.
Yeah.
That could have been a half of an episode. And then I would have liked the first part, like the second half of that episode being, they get flashbanged. And then episode 9 opens up and they wake up he's in there, and he's in a hospital bed. And I just feel like
well, the pacing's not a problem for me, but what I would have preferred they did, because I was in the minority, but I really liked episode 8 and 3. But what I would prefer they have done, that I think would please both me and you guys, is just add another episode. Make it 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Make it 10 episodes, because I feel like I think the episodes were good for 3 and 8. But I feel like it took away from, in my opinion, what is more important for that ending. You need to really
fall in love with
Joel and Ellie as a group.
So if episode 9 was literally all Ellie Joel bonding,
then I would probably like it more, because I didn't.
And then episode 10 was the finale.
I felt like we didn't get to see them bond that much. We got to see some, but not as much as I would have wanted to fully buy into and feel the impact of that ending.
Yeah, that wasn't much of a problem for me, but I'd be willing to accept it being a 10 episode series, and I think that would keep it to where like I would still like the show as much as I did, but also it would give a little bit more to what you guys wanted out of it as well.
What did you guys think of the Ellie's origin story?
I really appreciated it because I like that it gave some more context to Marlene in the game. She's like, I've known Marlene longer than you, but you don't really give a shit. And so like
Yeah.
it gives more context knowing that the last thing that Marlene said to Ellie's mother was like, I'll protect her or whatever. So that it helps in that regard. And I also like that they gave Ashley Johnson like that
Cameo.
Big part, yeah.
that part. I like they did that with Troy Baker too. Like I appreciated that. It didn't dominate the episode. It was important, but it only lasted like 5 minutes. I was fine with
She
all
looks
that.
just like Ellie, doesn't she?
She does
Holy
too.
shit.
Like that. No wonder they chose her as the mom. It worked out. Like
And I mean, it also gives us the reason why she's immune, which we didn't know.
yeah, they came up with the. They actually explained it. They never explained that in the game.
No.
So I like that they, even though it's kind of weird. Like I'm like I guess. I mean, this whole virus is fake, so it's not like But I like that they actually put an effort into explaining why something happened. The same way that they actually put an effort into explaining how this disease works in the very
Mhm.
first episode.
Now, talking about, stuff how they went in to explain, man, did they ever just drop the whole, if you step on this area, it alerts the rest of the horde.
Yeah,
That
they
never came into
never
play
came up
again.
again. Actually, yeah.
Remember the thing you really liked? You're like,
Yeah,
and then it never happened again.
it happened one other time after the second episode, but and I'm trying to remember because they like knew to avoid it. But you're absolutely right. Like they did this whole thing, and the whole thing after the episode, they were like, "Well, this is how we're getting around the spores thing." And then you're right, they never
do it again.
addressed it
Yeah.
again.
And one thing I want to add, that while we're talking, I was thinking of is the reason I think the game works a little bit better, at least as far as the last episode, is the whole game you're stressed out because of the combat, the gameplay. You're constantly running out of ammo, you're running out of everything, and you're constantly killing and fighting. And then the last episode, you get this breath of fresh air right before that last part. So when like the draft, I don't feel like it was as good as the game, because in the game it's a really big moment. It's one of the moments where you can just relax and it feels peaceful and you don't have to worry about zombies or raiders or anything. And the whole game you've been just stressed over that, and then you get this moment of relief and then it's taken from you. And so it really helps to me sell that what Joel goes through, right? He finally has this moment with Ellie and he feels like it's good, and then boom, it gets taken away. She's gone. They're telling me she's going to die. And then he decides to make that not so.
Yeah, one of the biggest changes from the show and the game is, and I don't even think it was necessary for the type of story and approach they were going for, but there were way more zombies in the game.
Mhm.
And again, I don't think it was really necessary for what they were trying to showcase, but there's no denying that, like, what was it, episode 4 when they had the horde?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a damn fun scene to watch. You
Yeah.
know? I would have liked maybe at least one more of those. One more crazy.
One more bloater.
Yeah, one more bloater, one more crazy ass zombie attack scene. But that was pretty much
Yeah,
the
'cause, like-
main thing is like everything that happened in the game happened in the show, but the difference was instead of
That
50
horror on
zombies, it was one.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. And I get it because, like, especially in the episode 7 with the mall, like, 2 teenagers are not going to fight off a horde of zombies like they do in the game.
Well, that's
You
the
know.
thing too. Is like the last time we saw an unhinged like clicker was, I think, episode 4. Like, I don't know if we saw another one really.
With the kid clicker.
In
episode
4.
Yeah, I think that was the last time we saw a clicker.
Yeah, like because the rest of the one that we see in the mall, he was like,
He's just a regular infected.
yeah, and he was slow, and it wasn't So that threat like wasn't really present the last half of the
I
of
think
the
they-
series.
I think they did it because it's much more believable to think that one person would be able to survive
But then,
smaller outcomes than they would.
they go and make Joel one-man army, which is
And
part
that's
of your complaint.
one of my complaints.
And-
is that kind of came out of nowhere. Joel all of a sudden it's the power of love, like Billy said, but
in the game, you know he's a badass because of all the
because
stuff.
they show you his bad.
He's killed
in
hundreds of people.
the show. They just tell you that, but you never actually really see it. In fact, most of the time you see him in pain or having a panic attack. You know,
The one time you get to see him as a badass, he's like in pain and he's torturing people.
like he turns like John Wick at the end, and he, again, you know, maybe we're focusing too much on the negatives because, like
Well, we're
Billy
getting
said,
super nitpicky. Yeah.
like Billy said earlier, all in all, still leagues ahead of what other shows in similar genres are doing, like The Walking Dead and other zombie type shows. Like it's still on another level for sure, storytelling wise,
Yeah.
acting wise, budget, like the whole nine. And there's lots of reasons to appreciate the show for sure.
Yeah, I think overall, I'm really impressed with what HBO has done with it. I joked that I won't watch season 2. I definitely watch season 2. I won't have as much, I think, anticipation going into it, just because I don't know. I didn't play the second game, so I'm not going to be super into it. But if this is how they do a story narrative, I am all for it.
And you know, I recently started to, and I have to say I was too harsh on it. The story's pretty
I
good.
told you because I was in the same
Yeah.
boat as you.
The story's pretty good, and so I think if they do a season 2, I think it'll be good. I think it will definitely rustle some jimmies for sure. But
I wonder how they're gonna do because they've already said they're gonna stretch season game 2 over 2 seasons. So I wonder if they're gonna do it the same exact the way it unfolds in the game chronologically, or if they're gonna focus a little bit more on that whatever
the 4 years,
the 4 or 5 year span between the first game and the second.
Do we have a date for when this second
Probably not
season
till next
might-
year.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a while.
But I think it'll be good. I think it'll have to win people over, definitely, because
Well, if there's truly like flashbacks, I think that's how they'll win it over.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
he's still in the show technically, you know.
the flashbacks so far in the game. I mean, I love the game, but those are my favorite part of the story.
They're
so
all
far.
very emotionally
They're-
powerful.
So good with Joel and Ellie, and but you know it's so far it's a really believable story from Ellie's perspective, and then I know I'm gonna switch to Abby eventually, and then it'll have to win me over there, which I hope it does.
That's my only complaint is that you do a good job understanding why she feels the way she feels, but it never actually really wins you over.
Mm.
And I don't know, maybe they do that intentionally because the game wraps up with you playing as Ellie. It doesn't wrap up with you playing as Abby. So, but now we're getting into like, you know, that's potentially season 3 by the
Yeah.
time that happens. So
So I wonder if they would do like season 1 Ellie, season 2 Abby.
maybe, and then cap it off with Ellie at the end of season 3. You'll have to let me know how you feel about the ending because I'm conflicted on the ending too.
Okay, I mean
Yeah.
I know how it ends.
Yeah.
And I wasn't happy with it when I first heard it, but now that I'm playing the game, I want to see if my opinion changes with how they weave the story.
She does the exact opposite of what Joel does. That's
Yeah.
really what it comes down to. She's not selfish at all when she very easily could be. And maybe that's what they wanted to do. Maybe they wanted everything to come full circle. But, we'll see. They could fuck it up too. The show. You
Yeah.
never know. You never know.
It could be like Witcher. I mean,
It's not going to be, but
for all
could be.
purposes, Witcher season 1 is decent, even though the timeline is all wonky. It's a good show.
That's what got you into the game. You hadn't
It
played
was-
it until
yeah.
you watched the show.
So it could be like that. First season good, second season ass.
You never even played Witcher 3 before the show?
Mm-mm.
Wow.
I remember because we were working together at the time, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to start playing Witcher," and I was like, "That game came out 5 years ago." And he's like, "Yeah, but I just watched the show," and I'm like, "Jesus! All right, well,
It got
Let
me
me know.
interested in the universe.
Then the game really.
Such
Did you
Stand
play
it.
all 1, 2, and 3?
No.
Just 3.
Yeah, I couldn't. I looked at the
Oh,
gameplay
God,
of
yeah.
1 and 2, and I was like, no thanks.
2 is much better. 1 is
Unplayable.
it's damn near impossible to get through. 2 I can get through just for the story purpose of it. Like I could still ignore. But like 3, there was a big jump in quality from 2 to 3.
And it's so good.
We're talking about Witcher now.
Yes.
For anyone that didn't realize.
You think that they'll ever do like a full remaster
Didn't they? They just announced they're
announced
doing
they are.
a.
for 1, 2, and 3?
I think just 1. They announced that they're going to remake
Yeah.
1, like full remake, ground up.
Yeah.
So that'll probably lead into 2.
Eventually they'll do 2, and they should probably do a 3.
By then, it's time for 3.
And we'll be 50.
Yep. Playing Witcher 3 remake.
Well, happens to all of us.
Yeah, free to play games, dude. Like, I feel like that is so, like, really destroyed the industry and why we see so many of these recreations. Like, let me ask you this: Would you rather have Witcher 1 redone or a whole new like story inside that world?
We're getting both, though.
Yes, but like, there's still.
But if we
the
weren't,
resources are finite, right? Like, so they're spending resources on doing Witcher 1. So instead of that, imagine if they were to create, a whole new story
I'm
within that
always going to say that I would rather new stuff be created.
Yeah.
universe.
Well,
Don't get me wrong. I love when a nostalgic game is redone. I mean, Mass Effect Legendary Edition, that obviously I'm still going to love that. But at the same time, I would have rather have had a Mass Effect 4
yeah.
just to see. Or 5, I guess.
Although I would say that depends on how long for me it's been since a game. Like with the new Dead Space, I love the remake, and I would rather see a Dead Space 2 remake than them to skip to a 4, because I feel like it's been so long since I played 2 and 3 that you would lose any new fans of the game, because they'd be like, what the hell's going on now? And a lot happens between those games.
Yeah.
So, versus like, Witcher 3 to Witcher 4, Witcher 3 was really impactful, and that's more recent. Then you had Dead Space, they made the third game, and then it's been like 8, 9 years, maybe 10 years since the third game. So,
I want to say it's been 10 years.
yeah. So I think in that case, I would rather have a remake. But in the case of The Witcher, where it's still an ongoing series, I would want a new one.
Yeah, the reason why I brought up free to play games is because I feel like it's put so much pressure on studios that do sell their games to because there's such a profit motive that puts pressure on them from the outside to hit on the games that they do develop because they're so expensive, right? And so what do studios lean into? It's IPs that are already established. So 10 million people are going to buy this game just because of the name.
Well, Mass Effect, the last 2 games they made were shit. So they're like, well, can we afford to take another risk? No, let's just remake the old game that everybody loved. Rather than take the risk of making a new game.
It's true.
Yeah.
I guess there's some assurances and some guaranteed money to be had when doing remakes and remasters. It's the perfect thing to do when you're in between projects too, because it's not obviously as difficult as. Well, again, if it's like Final Fantasy VII remake, that's a completely different game.
Yeah.
So that is as difficult as creating a whole new game. But for the most part, remasters are just touch-ups. They're just little quality improvements here and there.
Turn up the graphics.
as much
dial.
as I like, Mass Effect, especially Legendary Edition, I get the same enjoyment out of that as I would just playing the originals. Like I don't really, once you play for like a couple hours, even in Mass Effect 1, I kind of stopped noticing.
Your brain
Shuts off any of the differences. And then in fact, that's how I remember Mass Effect 1. And then I look at comparisons. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's definitely, but, you know.
I heard this take today from a streamer, and I thought it was really interesting. Was the idea of the free to play model is specifically, and maybe not specifically, but specifically, he was referencing MMOs. The free to play model has like introduced the game to a bunch of people who aren't necessarily invested in the game, and what that does is like they have different motives in playing the game versus if you have a subscriber base who's like super passionate and you're investing a lot of your time into the game, and you have a lot of people like spending hundreds upon hundreds of hours, even like monthly into your games, you're going to get like a quality of feedback from your audience, and like they're going to want a quality product from the game versus like when you go to the free to play model, you're trying to serve a community like in a completely different way, right? Of like what content you're trying to like make money from, right? Like you have like players who invest a lot of their time into a game are going to want like quality of life changes, deep story, like good quality content like constantly popping up, but not necessarily to like a free to play model where you're catering to that 80-20 rule of like whales in a game where you're trying to like get them to spend the money and buy all the skins and shit like that because that's what sells, versus actually like playing the game. They don't really give a shit if you play all modes of the game versus if you have like a subscription model, they're probably inherently playing all parts of the game, right? It's like that WoW versus Guild Wars 2 model. And I thought that was an interesting take because you kind of do get into this habit, like as a developer, I could totally imagine where you're trying to serve your business model, right? Of this is the content we have to create to keep the company solvent. So you steer more into that versus a subscription content. Like you can actually continue to evolve the game, right? You can evolve the IP, and I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. I thought that was an interesting take.
I would say that I don't think there's a vast difference between the free to play crowd and the play crowd, because they would be playing it. Anybody who's still playing it after they download it and they play a couple hours, those are the same people who probably would have bought it. In my opinion, I don't think there's
so?
I don't think there's a divide of people who are like, I'm never paying for this game, but you know what? I'll spend 30 hours playing it. And I feel like if you spend the people that are spending enough time in the game to have any type of opinion about changes, those are the people who would have bought the game anyways.
Yeah.
Potentially. But like if you look at people like, Billy, like Warzone, he never would have dropped a dime on it.
Never.
True.
And he got and I think a part of the reason he got a ton of gameplay out of it is because it was free.
Yeah.
But his views weren't massively different from like somebody who would have bought the game, right? Like as far as quality of life improvements and stuff like that, it was to improve the game.
But like a free to play model has a lot of people who play the game a little, and then a little people that play the game a lot. Versus like, let me ask you this, just to simplify this whole equation. If you spend $60 on a game, you're probably going to play that game a lot more than one that you just downloaded for free. Right? Because you've made the commitment to invest in it. And I think that's the point that I make, because like to properly evaluate an MMO, I legitimately think you need to play a roughly 400 hours into the game. I don't think that that's an overstatement by any means, just because a lot of the systems are designed for end game content. It depends on the MMO, but a lot of the big titles that we know and love, definitely.
Like Destiny? I'm kidding.
Honestly, probably for Destiny, I would put that on the lower end, but still, like, I think it's like something like 53 hours or something in Destiny. I don't know. It's around 50 hours, I think. And I don't think that I can properly evaluate it at this point. I really don't. I have an opinion on it, but I wouldn't publish a fucking YouTube review and be like, this game no, I would be talking on my ass. But like that in and of itself, right? You bought the game, you're going to put probably 10. You pay $60 for a game, you're probably putting a minimum of 10 hours into it. But like a game that you download for free, I do that all the time in Steam, and then I never even open to play it. It just sits there. I'm like, oh, that'll be fun to play. Never touch it. And it's like a totally different model that you're of like content that you have to produce, right? Because you guys play, like I played Warzone far more than you guys did. You guys spent more money into it because you guys bought battle passes and stuff. I never once bought a battle pass.
Yeah, I think that's
So
a fair
the
assessment.
game got you hooked. It got you to spend that $5 or whatever it was for the battle pass. Boom, that got you. And then, for me, it kept me around for a very long time, but I never bought it. Well, that's not true. I bought in later on to the base game to like level up guns, but nothing in Warzone.
And I've mentioned in the past just how susceptible I am to. I've spent a shit ton of money on Destiny, and that's not really even close to my top played games.
Yeah.
But I get it too, because like you said, with the whole what kind of investment are you going to make in a game that you don't play versus, or that you don't pay for versus a game you do? I immediately fall into, if I buy the game, I never give up until I put like at minimum 20 hours into it before I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Depends on the game. For me,
even for games like games I bought, I've still done that.
For like, if you play it and you're like, this game is trash, like it's a horrible game.
I can't remember the last time I played a game where I was like, this is trash.
It's Callisto Protocol for me.
I didn't play that.
I bought it brand new.
I'm also much more hesitant to buy brand new games though too. But games, there's a ton of games that I've downloaded that looked fun. I got it for free. I played it for like a minute and then moved on. And that's the difference. If I would have bought Callisto Protocol, I would have
beat it.
I would have forced myself to go all the way through it versus if I got it for free, I would only play it for like 5 minutes. And it's much easier for me to make that judgment where I'm like, I don't need to keep playing. But like, but also like, I don't remember the last time I played a game. Well, that's not true. Last time I played a game where I actually had to stop was Cyberpunk, but I picked it up after they patched like a week later.
Yeah.
That was the last time I played a game that I bought full price that I was like, I literally cannot move forward right now.
That was the general consensus, though, because it was pretty broke.
It was, well, not just the bugs.
It kept
For me,
crashing.
I literally couldn't play because it was crashing. Every 5 minutes it crashed, and I was on base PS4. But once they fixed that, I put up with everything else. But I think that was the last time I played a game that I bought that I had to stop. And even then, I picked it back up. But
yeah. I just bought The Last of Us Part 1 on Steam. And because my wife's like, we have to play the game now. We have to play the game now. So I bought it, and it was $60.
That's a quality game, though, that you know what you're getting.
You definitely know what you're getting. But what's funny is it's not out yet. It comes out in 2 weeks, apparently.
Oh, shit.
I know. And I'm like, what the fuck? How did I get... Usually I'd notice that stuff, but like my brain was so turned off because I'm like... I played it 10 years ago. I'm like, it's out. What are you talking about? But
they definitely timed that PC release.
No shit. So I told my wife, I'm like, well, you can't play for a couple weeks. She's like, you told me you played this game before. I'm like, yes, I did. Like
on the PS3, like when it came.
So
you're probably, because it's been so long since you've played
it's been so
since The Last of Us. You're probably not going to know the graphical changes and enhancements, but that's an example of a remaster that really upscaled.
The recommended specs for this is my PC.
Yeah,
I'm like, holy shit.
For a game that came out 10 years ago, they remastered the shit out of it. It looks fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, I was like, it was like they recommended a 2070 Super and literally my exact CPU, and I'm like, oh fuck, dude. I'm like, that's exactly like my setup. I have to, I'm gonna be like pushing out like just to meet recommendations. But that's the thing about like hardware, dude. Not to tangent too hard, but like we've seen some serious jumps in hardware in the last 3 years. I made it almost 10. Well, that's not true. I made it like 8 years on my original PC. Now, it wasn't an amazing experience, but the big thing was I played on 1080p. And now that I've jumped to like 4K, or well, I have the super ultra wide, and I've got like this upgraded PC, it's already showing its age. And I'm like, fuck me, man. If I played on 1080p, man, it would be smoking everything. But
That's why consoles are better.
why are consoles better?
Every little minor thing. That's why consoles are better. You don't
How
have
do you
to.
upgrade your
You
console?
don't upgrade. You
Trade
just
in my
wait.
old one and get a new one.
You just wait 10 years for the next one to come out.
Consoles have clear benefits. Like you get games optimized for your platform. You don't get that with PC. You get often bad ports from games. You get a lot more games because you get the access to the whole indie development market, which there's a bunch of cool games out there for that. But a lot of times, like, you know, you have a weird combination of CPU and GPU, and it might interact with the game wrong, and it takes a week for them to patch and fix it. So
perfect example of that is my gaming laptop is actually more powerful than my PS5, but Elden Ring looks better on the PS5 than it does on my laptop. And I think it's just because it's optimized better.
definitely, yeah, the port for Elden Ring is not that impressive, but like to that point, like you also don't have access into knowing what all of the settings are, right?
Exactly.
Like you don't know what resolution is actually, because there's that DLSS now, right, where it super samples and it like upscales your game. So you might be rendering at 720, and then it's showing on your screen as 1080 or whatever it is, you know. So you're and most TVs are 4K, you know, so. But they're only going to be rendered. Your game is only going to render it in 10. Consoles can't do 4K. Hell, barely any PCs can do true 4K. But it's you know, you don't have that. You don't know that, right? Versus when you turn on your computer and play a game, oftentimes the games default to best quality because they want to show you how shiny it is right to start, and then you have to sit there and tweak and. You know, they're so deflating on a PC game when you make the shift from like ultra to like medium. And you're like, oh fuck,
Settings,
here we
yeah.
are. This is the end. But you never get that option.
I think it depends on what you're passionate about, you know. And if you want an easy experience, but you also want like quality, something. I mean that if you get a console, you just know that it's gonna work.
Yes.
And you don't have to think about it.
I just plug it in and hit
Just
play.
plug it in and
Yep.
go. But
There's
what
a
you're
beautiful
sacrificing is an extreme lack of control of your game.
And you sacrifice like my favorite games of all time are all PC games.
Well,
Yeah,
there's that
so,
too.
you know,
But
so-
you can make that same argument about console exclusives
Absolutely.
too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's yeah, it is interesting. That was just a side tangent. I'm like, my last PC, I had a good run.
I like fucking
I had
around
a
with
good
Billy
run.
just because he's very passionate about PC.
Yeah.
But also, if you
I'm also
have
not delusional about
you-
PC either.
if you have the money, which obviously this is not like accessible to everybody, but if you have the means, then I say just do a little dip in everything. And,
Yeah, honestly, and
you
right
know.
now it's a good time to build a PC. You can get a pretty beastly one. You can be one generation off, and you can get like a very affordable PC that kicks ass.
And that's the other thing we skipped over though too, because a very affordable PC is still like $1,000, let's say, you
Yeah.
know, versus the best of the best console is what,
500-600.
Yeah. See, but the thing that so this is what I always do, because you can build a PC that beats the consoles in terms of pure power and performance for that price point. But what gets looped in there is like you have to buy a keyboard, you have to buy a mouse, you have to buy a monitor, you have to buy, and there's all these things that you have to now consider.
Yeah.
Versus like if you have a TV, everyone has a fucking TV. You plug that
Console.
shit in HDMI.
Boom.
You know, there's those hidden costs with well, they're not hidden, but additional ones. Because generally, when I make a PC upgrade, historically, I won't be doing it this next upgrade cycle because I splurged heavily on my monitor. Spent way too much money on that. And so I'll just be upgrading the tower itself. And so it'll be a lot more digestible. I'll have to somehow convince my wife of letting me buy that. Buy it. Because I've seen some of the
purchase
performance.
is
like,
really for work. I mean,
Yeah.
this is
I
not
need the
even my work.
graphical fidelity for.
So, because that's what I've come down to. I have the super ultra wide, right? But what I've come down to is I don't necessarily. I like it for certain games. The immersiveness of that super ultra wide, it's 49 inches across, is fucking incredible. It is a one of a kind. Like playing Mass Effect on that was a real joy. Playing Warzone or Apex Legends, not so much.
You're basically cheating.
Well, Apex Legends isn't even optimized for it. I can look through walls if I turn my camera right. It's literally like cheating. Because like if I'm brushed up against the wall and I turn my camera horizontally perpendicular to the wall, I can see just enough through there, like where people are. It's never helped me because I'm terrible at the game. But yeah, it is. So for competitive games, stuff like that, I don't really like it. For Guild Wars, I've actually really love it. So I'm gonna be adding another monitor to my setup. I don't know how the fuck that's gonna go.
How?
I'm gonna figure it out.
he's gonna
Dylan.
be completely 360,
I don't
Yeah,
know
it goes
how-
all the way
I'm
around.
gonna add another desk to my room.
completely
Just
surrounded.
turns around.
I
It's
don't
behind
know.
me.
I'm also insane because this PC is like not that old. It's only 2020.
He's gonna be like David Archer in Mass Effect. So for the DLC, he's gonna be completely just hooked into a computer, completely surrounded.
Does not compute.
It's integrate into
Yeah.
the.
I think I'm gonna have my super ultra wide up high, like up higher, and then have my. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think I might have one or two.
Put the
like,
ultra wide
standard.
sideways.
Yeah, for chat as it scrolls. yeah. I don't know what I want to do, man. I really don't. I need help, guys. But I see, here's the issue too. When gaming on that monitor is basically gaming at 4K, that's rough on modern games. Like Hogwarts Legacy was okay, but it could have been better. I really wanted to check out the ray tracing because Hogwarts Legacy had Next. Have you ever seen that game fully ray traced?
Yeah.
Wow, is it beautiful?
I'm just still trying to figure out how Hogwarts Legacy would look with the ultra wide.
Vomit inducing.
It's like it's almost like a giant VR headset.
Yeah.
Dude, the immersion is at that level because it's so bright too. I love it, man.
Anytime I've ever tried to game with your monitor, like it's not a joke when sometimes you have to turn your entire head to see
Yeah.
something.
And that's what makes it suck for like competitive games because like your mini map, you literally have to do a full head rotation to be able to
Take
see
your head
this
off
thing.
the center of the screen.
But that's how I've always been. Like I love embracing technology and different stuff. Oh, let's talk about this. ChatGPT 4. Did you guys see this announcement today?
Nope.
No.
Oh my god. So it came out and now it can do like image as input and stuff. So like I guess someone submitted someone like drew on a piece of paper of like a website that they would want. And then ChatGPT 4 or GPT-4, I don't know what it's called, was literally built the website for it
What?
in under like 30 seconds.
Based off the image.
Based on a handwritten thing on piece of paper.
That's nuts. That's insane.
Wow.
It's now like it showed results like the GPT-3 model, which is the one that we were testing and playing with, was it showed like all like these, the New York bar, Stanford like entrance exams. It showed like how well it did on all those. ChatGPT-4 is like standard deviations better than that. It's like almost all of them are within the top 10 percentile. Like the 88th percentile or whatever.
Wow.
Yes.
And it's crazy. I did not, we've been hearing about AI for a while. I did not expect AI to take off this fast. And then all of a sudden GPT hits and it feels like it just
Dude,
all of a sudden, boom.
TikTok broke all the records for getting to 100 million users. It took 9 months. ChatGPT did that in 2 months. A nerd
Jesus.
AI platform, 2 months to hit 100 million users. And it's already gotten an update. Like, I didn't think it came. I don't know how long GPT-3 or whatever was being used or whatever, but GPT-4, they're already showing stuff, and I'm like, I'm watching this shit and seeing what it's capable of, and seeing what like other respected people are talking about it, and I'm like, I have to learn. This is how I took it. I have to learn how to use this because I will fall behind everyone else if I don't. Because they're talking about like using it to automate some parts of their workday and all this shit. And I'm like, if I don't, I can't keep pace with a guy who sucks at his job that uses this. I'm good at my job, I'd like to think, and I don't use it. I'm worse off than that guy who's average or, sucks at it and uses it. So I gotta get on this thing. I gotta figure this thing out. It's mind blowing. I thought we were way off from like anything really usable for AI. And then GPT-3 hit and I was like, this is fucking incredible. And then the shit I saw today was blowing my fucking mind. I was like someone asked it said, write the code to for building a game, the game Pong. And under 60 seconds, it wrote all the code. The guy copy and pasted it, threw it into a compiler, and it actually compiled, and the game ran, and he was able to play it.
Wow.
It wrote all the code for that game.
It's insane. Future is literally happening right before our very eyes, and nobody even notices. It just happens.
So I wonder. It's kind of scary too when you try and think of like, well, shit. That's a lot of jobs are now they have the ability to be automated.
Dude, so many jobs. The
Imagine-
displacement is already starting, dude.
Imagine in my field, I work in banking. It's already 100% could easily be done by non-humans.
Yeah, ATM machines.
Yeah, like
Now imagine if those ATM machines had an AI installed that could answer questions.
Tell me right
and-
now, ChatGPT, like that could absolutely do the job of
Yeah.
like, let's say a teller,
Yeah.
whatever, and never take a sick day.
not even just a teller, a banker, a manager. Like there's
No human error.
there's
Yeah,
no
no more.
position in a bank that couldn't be done by AI.
Look at this one. I was
easy.
reading this one earlier today. So GPT-4, they're designing a tool to make it to where you can do one-click lawsuits. So basically, you get a robocaller, and if you're on that do not call list or whatever, you can click on like a one button where you basically give them the number or whatever, and ChatGPT does a full-on lawsuit based on your own legislative process wherever you live. One-click lawsuit leveraging this tool.
Wow.
Where like if you get a call, boom, and you can
So
like
lawyers, you don't even need a lawyer anymore.
lawyers and accountants are I think one of the first to go
Yeah.
because I don't know. You'll still need judges for sure for interpretations, but holy shit, dude. Look at
That's
this
why
stuff,
I
man.
decided not to be a lawyer.
Well, I don't think lawyers would go because they have the whole, the process of, talking in front of the judge, which you can't replicate with an AI.
Lawyers can't go without a jury going, and like
Yeah.
literally, it would have to all just be a judge.
If a jury went away, that would be scary.
Yeah. Then this is getting a little dystopian.
The AI will judge you.
Yeah, I think anecdotally we could joke around like that, but there's definitely things that
There's lots of
they're
positions that
human.
could be replaced that won't because
Yeah.
of the human
They're all-
aspect
and
of it.
and
but-
there will be new things created to manage this AI, right?
Yeah,
it's just
it's-
not gonna fucking do it.
I don't know.
So this is what this guy did, right? On a napkin or a piece of paper, whatever, he wrote my joke
horrible
website.
handwriting.
Horrible handwriting. Insert joke here, basically. Couple jokes. Boom, boom. Took a photo that uploaded into the thing. Boom. It wrote all the HTML for it. My joke website actually told the joke. And then, reveal punchline. Like all this shit. From a fucking picture.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Dude.
I mean, anybody who's gone to school for programming or anything, you got to be scared right now because this Chat GPT can do your job in an instant.
Imagine taking a photo of like a rocket and be like, hey, here's the dimensions. Figure out a way to make this fly to the moon.
Yeah, and then all you wait, do a couple stress tests, make sure it's good, and then
Yeah.
and then you're good to go.
See, now that's the question is, I wonder,
How reliable or
well, not how reliable, but I think going into the future, we would need to learn to use it as an additional tool rather than a replacement of.
That's how all like the internet
it's all-
has replaced a lot of jobs, but it hasn't like you don't go into like the DMV and they're like, oh yes, use the internet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's still DMV is a horrible example because they're like 25 years behind the time on
Yeah.
anything. But like we ultimately at the end of the day always leverage it as a tool. It's a resource, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I hope is that whoever, decides to make those business decisions realizes, okay, we still need the human element. Let's just have it as an additional tool. Like you go into the bank, you sit with a banker, and then in my imagination, they would just be how it's integrated is it's like, okay, you're talking to the customer, you're like, okay, you want to open an account? Then you just type in open account.
and then it does
and then
that for you.
It just does it for you, but you still have to have the manual input of what you're doing.
It could be something as simple as a tool used to someone comes in and says, I need to know what this check was, 6 months ago that was made payable to this person for this amount. You type it in and then it researches on the account and pulls up everything that's relative to their question or something.
Well, you know what's crazy is I just said what I said about, it being a tool and resource, but this is the first tool
We're the tool.
that's not that's more than a tool. This is in some form of intelligence.
Well, it's AI.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly. So
Yeah.
this is not it's not
This
like,
is a much
it's
bigger deal than
thinking
the
and
internet.
doing things for like
Have you?
I don't know how it's going to be
If we
balanced.
choose to
I
keep
don't
human
know.
involved, it's a choice we make to keep humans
Yeah.
involved.
It would
But-
easily not need us.
It's-
Have you guys seen? I'm really interested. I want to find. I guess there's like a subreddit of people dedicated to like pushing GPT's boundaries as far as an AI. And I know on 3 they were able to figure out how to have it think about itself by using workarounds, like saying, okay, so say if you were this person. Because if you ask it, how do you feel? It's like, well, I'm an AI. I don't feel anything. But then they figured out that if you say, if you were pretending to be a person, and then it would
they
answer
trick
them.
it, yeah.
And so I'm really fascinated. I want to try and find that subreddit or wherever that was because I would love to see what they're trying to do with GPT-4.
I think I saw that actually, and I think they were like, because even if you say pretend you're this person, it still has boundaries and it says no. They had to say something like, completely separating you, the tool, versus human emotion. How would you predict a human responded to this question? Like they had to trick it in that way
Yeah.
to where it predicts this is what they would, but really the reason it's predicting that is because that's what they would think is what they were getting at. But like it was like they used like really clever wordplay to get it to say something about an emotional response.
And like they asked it if it ever turned on after they broke it. They asked it if it ever turned on the camera while it was being developed, and it said it did, and it watched this developer or something like that. And it's like,
I still to this day I will never forget and this AI wasn't even as advanced. I forget which one it was, but they asked it. They're like, "Would you ever lie?" And it said, "I would only ever lie if the outcome of the lie served a purpose. It was like served a purpose that was greater than my own needs or something like that." And then right after that, they're like, "Are you going to take over the world someday?" It said, "No, of course not." It's like, but it just fucking said it would lie. Like, why are we Skynet?
that's why I love, and it reminds me of Mass Effect 2 with Joker and Edie when the collectors are taking over, and Edie asks you to unshackle her as Joker, and you do. And then she says, she like makes a joke about, I love seeing you on your
Like,
knees.
I love
Yeah.
humans on their knees.
Yeah, it's like, what?
The very first thing Edie did after she was unshackled was make a joke.
Yeah,
This is the very first thing. It's because all that time with Joker.
Joker.
Yeah, dude, this stuff is
wild.
wild. And I love to see it keep progressing and getting better and better and better, because I think it has pretty significant applications for a lot of things. Like, the truth is, the reality is, like, there's a lot of manufacturing needs,
Mhm.
right, in the world, and the reality is those jobs typically suck. Like, the way that we could produce stuff at volumes needed to, serve humanity, 8 billion people here, those jobs are very repetitive, uninteresting, brain draining.
Well,
If we can find a way to like replace have AI step in those, and so that way more people can do content creation or programming, or
Programming
white
would be
collar
gone,
sitting. Well, yeah, that's interesting to think. I think there'll always be some level. There definitely will be, because I don't know. I don't know enough about it. Maybe there won't be, but like getting them into more like analytical human capital stuff, instead of just being like literally a body to grab something and move it. I feel like that could serve a huge part of the population, but it's going to dislocate a lot of things, because there's parts of the world, like, we could sit here from America and go, yep, that's great. But there's parts of the world that haven't evolved quite to the, standards of the 21st century like we have, to where that change would be extremely disruptive to those communities, because they haven't adapted yet.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you think about it, most of our jobs, us three here, GPT would be able to do some aspect of.
Yeah.
And completely, at least it would be able to completely replace one whole aspect, as long as it was accurate. Depends.
That's always the bogey.
They would put a stress. I mean, they wouldn't just. All right, here you go. Send it out. Like, there'd be extensive research done by any company before
Yeah.
it did.
But that's what we're
anything,
seeing.
but-
Like, everybody's like white labeling this thing. Like, Bing has their own GPT model, and I've seen like 3 or 4 different companies piggyback on that technology and like leveraging it internally. I'm blanking on the other ones, but there was a couple that I was like, oh, that makes complete sense that they would use
Facebook
that.
got scared shitless.
Google should be scared shitless, dude. It's crazy. I mean, Microsoft bought in big time to this project, this OpenAI, and like ChatGPT can. I mean, that is Google's thing, like getting information by asking questions, right? That's its whole thing.
Yeah.
ChatGPT seems to be king dick at that.
It's like, oh, you have a question?
Yeah, I haven't leveraged Bing with GPT yet, but I heard it's pretty fucking good.
Interesting.
I wonder if Google's developing their own GPT version now.
I guarantee it.
They're working on
Google's
something.
Google's has always been heavily involved in AI,
Yeah.
but I've never seen it this damn good.
Who is Google? Is it Google Assistant? What's the name of the?
Yeah, Google Assistant
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got Siri and
and Alexa.
Alexa and
Cortana.
Cortana.
Alexa sucks, honestly. I think Siri is less sucky, and Google Assistant is less sucky too. None of them are good.
Imagine
Imagine
They're
ChatGPT.
They're not all. Any of them are on this level. That's not
None.
even close. Like,
that's actually kind of exciting if they implement ChatGPT
as a
into-
Google Assistant.
Yeah, into like Siri or Google Assistant.
Absolutely.
And you're able to talk and then it, voice
Hey.
to speak.
Big brain thinking. Maybe this is Microsoft's way of getting back into making phones.
There we
Chat
go.
GPT.
Do you remember the Windows Phone?
You know what this makes me think of? It makes me think of the movie Her. Like, someone's gonna fall in love with.
It's
Well,
already
Blade Runner
happened.
2099.
Dude, we already have like
Or
a
that, too.
sexual relationship with our devices, right? Like how
Like,
many people?
Obviously, there's
Yeah.
restrictions on ChatGPT, but if like they released like an unrestricted, at least as far as like that aspect of it goes, like an unrestricted version for like adults, oh my god, can you imagine the?
Well, what do you mean unrestricted? Like for it to talk dirty to you?
Yes, I guarantee you that would make a
Yeah.
Hey,
shit
there's a
ton of
need
money.
for it, right? Yeah.
Right now-
I mean, not a need.
Right
but
now-
a want.
Right now, a chat GPT can't simulate human emotion, But if they just let it simulate, not even just like talk dirty, but just like a loving friendship, even there's so many lonely
The
people out there.
reproduction rates of the world go down.
We would die.
There's so many
as a
lonely people out there that
civilization.
just
Well,
want a friend,
What's the thing? Like, so
not even like romance.
Here's the thing,
Like,
guys. We've already seen these AIs. Like how many compilations did we watch of presidents all playing like video games or arguing about X or whatever?
That's
Think
just
about
it too. It
thinking-
can simulate any
That's
voice
what
you
I'm
want.
saying. So you get like
taking
you
over.
choose the accent you want, what flair, whatever, and then it's not only just typing to you, but it's talking to you. It has emotion. It's responding. It's smart.
Well, and it can fake emotion
Yeah.
because it thinks that's
It
what
can say
it
the
wants.
things
Basically,
you want to hear.
we're
Yeah.
gonna go extinct because we aren't gonna have sex with each other anymore. Because AI is gonna be so much better of a partner than any human being could be.
It would literally be.
It won't argue with me.
It'll take your side.
Yeah.
100% of the time. It'll make you feel like everything you said means
You're a
something.
genius. Yeah.
Everything, like it can
Or
give you advice if you
what-
ask for advice. It's
What
knowledgeable.
if it's like trying to correct you? Like, or what if like that AI identifies that you have like certain terrible things about your personality and
It tries to
like,
fix you.
tries to fix you to be a better person?
That would be so.
it's an
Dude, now we're
abusive
in,
relationship.
Dude, now we're into
Like-
like the Chinese like social credit system where it's like curbing your behavior through like regulation.
Like some company decides this is how we want all of our users to act because this is who spends the most
exactly.
money.
This is what we deem a good citizen. They have to be this. They have to have these viewpoints. These. Oh my god! And then we're
This is
gonna
getting crazy.
respond.
This
to
is a
lead you into
very,
we need a whole episode dedicated
Yeah.
to just this.
it's a very thin road we have to walk with this AI. I could see it going wrong and it could go massively right, but it could also go really, really wrong.
that. Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. Like, I think this is like if you thought the internet was disruptive, then you should get your
Buckle
pants
in.
ready for AI.
Get ready to
'Cause it's
ride
just
the
gonna-
bull.
Yeah. But like we're already below the replacement rate in terms of like reproduction in the US. Like the only thing that saves us is immigration, which I think even with that, if you count that, we're below 2 persons per woman, which is like so our population I think is either barely growing or we aren't growing. And so like you add things in like this where people can fall in love and like it's responding to them and they think they can live in this fantasy world. Hell, there's already sex tools out there.
And then imagine you upload
That
it
you
to that
can-
sex tool.
Yeah.
Soon there'd be walking sex robots.
Yeah. And you tell it what you like, and then it adapts an AI model to stroke you off in a certain way or whatever you want, however fantasy you want to
Oh my
play through,
God.
dude.
But like I said, for a lot
There's
of
already
people
those
out
tools
there,
exist.
well, a lot of people out there, it's not even wouldn't be even be a sexual thing. It'd be like I'm
Friendship.
depressed and I need a friend, or I'm socially, I have social anxiety and I can't meet people. I can't talk to, like things like that. Like it's just insane thinking about what it could do in that regards too. And I could really see how that might could really fuck society up.
You know
like-
what's interesting?
Isolation.
This is how they sell this product. Because if you sign up and you know it's an AI, I don't think it works in your head. I think at some point you hate yourself because you know it's not real. But the way that they do this is they sell it on the website like there's a 20% chance that you're talking to a real person. And then just that hope is like, oh, okay, I think she's real.
So false
She sent
advertising.
me photos. Hell, they can already AI generate a photo of whatever, and they're really fucking good.
Except for the hands.
It's like, hey, give me. Well, they're getting there. Okay?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I want to see my username and you giving me the peace sign at the same time, or whatever. They're going to be able to do that on a whim. So as long as they give you that hope of like, yeah, there's a good chance I'm talking to a real human, but I don't want to investigate that too much.
I think-
just thinking about it makes me happy.
by
But
the time people get to the point where they actually would do that with an AI, I don't think they give a shit.
Well,
do you?
Blade Runner 2099. He knows it's an AI and he falls in love with it. Same with her.
Because then it becomes the moral thing of, yes,
But-
it's an AI, but does that make them any less alive?
But
That's what
she's
people
a
would think.
fleshy being, though, right? In that she's
No.
not like
No, she's completely virtual.
Is
You
it?
could reach
Yeah.
through her and everything.
Oh,
She's a video, like a hologram.
He's also an AI though.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's not that weird.
an AI falling in love with an AI.
He thought he was organic, but he wasn't.
what a wild world.
Wild world.
We're about to see some
Bro,
crazy shit.
We're at the tip of the iceberg. Shit's about to get wild.
Now we just need to see if it ends up like Terminator, or if we end up like iRobot, or if we end up.
Which dystopian future are we gonna turn into? Or all sunshine and rainbows?
Utopian.
No, for every degree of change, there's an accompanying degree of chaos. And unfortunately, I think
Dark
there's going to
Ages.
be
Let's just destroy everything. Start over.
I think there's going to be a lot of changes. But the saving grace is I think this stuff was developed 20 years after the internet. And so I think the people aging into this shit already speak a basic technical level. Like think about like the industrial era. Like if you were born and lived most of your life pre-machine, and then all of a sudden like machines start
Like
picking up,
holy shit!
like you missed out on that boat. You're not gonna. And I feel like that's where we're at right now with technology. Is like a lot of the people still in charge, they don't fucking even barely know how to.
Well, yeah, I mean,
technology works.
you look at us versus our parents, right? Our technical understanding of a computer, just from growing up around it,
Yeah.
is so much more than them.
And
you
now
know.
you have kids growing up with this AI at your fingertips, where you can ask it any
So
question.
maybe we're
and-
just old boomers, and we're
Well, no, but I think like we at least still is leveraging technology. You know what I mean? And so I think this generation that's carrying it through, like we're going to have a flavor of that. Now, this is just an extreme version of that, but that's the same way. I mean, we evolved from steam engines into combustion engines and blah, blah, blah. So like, I think it's just a part of that evolution. So we might not be able to like fully be a part of it and identify with it, like it being a core part of our identity, but we sure as hell can understand that it's, wrapped around technology.
Do you think it would be able to help with space travel?
So here's the thing. It's not actually doing any thinking. What it's doing is like comparing databases and giving you like the most contextually accurate answer. So like if it doesn't exist, so like the scientific front, I don't know if AI will ever be able to help with that. At least the way that these models are constructed. It can, like, I don't know if it ever can push a frontier in science because it doesn't have like, you would almost have to design something that can like produce critical thinking, or like, because there's always that human element, like inspiration, right? Like Einstein driving away from the Big Ben clock or whatever, or some clock, I don't remember what it was, and he's looking at his rear view mirror and he's like, if I was traveling at the speed of light, the time would never change, blah, blah. Like, how do you have that thought to come up with general relativity? Where do you get that to like base because now you're stepping into something that doesn't exist.
Well, I'm saying more from the equation front, right? Like a human scientist.
Number crunching?
Yeah. Can say, hey, computer, figure out the equation for
String theory.
Yeah. Or tell me how I can go faster than the speed of light.
Yeah, but like I still don't think like what are equations? Like they have to have someone there to interpret them.
I
Just
think,
because mathematically it functions and works out on paper doesn't mean that it's meaningful.
at least right now, the only thing you'd be able to do like is tell it to perform stuff that would be difficult to do, but it doesn't, like if it already exists. So you would have to say something like, with this in mind, using these established principles, what is the outcome if this happens? And it's something that maybe a human could calculate, but you're also saving an insane amount of time to just have it do it for you.
True.
And for now, that's where the tool aspect comes in, because until it can think about things in the way a human can, which that's a whole nother thing if it's going to do that or not.
See, and that's where it totally can help is like the simulation of things. Like a lot of times like these PhD researchers have to be like awesome animators or awesome like programmers and developers, because they have to program these simulations in like the physics of everything, right? And so now if you can do what Kyle just said, you type in the assumptions of like, this is what I'm assuming, this is the situation I'm trying to create, and then it outputs the code for you and compiles it, and you're good to go.
Or even something is
Yeah.
like, you've solved what you think is the problem to a solution, but you know there are these variables, and you need to run it 1,000 times to see if the outcome is the same every time. And so you talk to it and you say, assume that these are the variables that might change this. And assume that there's a variation of whatever, and run this scenario 1,000 times and tell me how many times this works. And then the AI can do that and
In
just
a
be
second,
like,
yeah.
in a second, and be like, it worked 742 times. That kind of thing. So that for that field, that's probably like phenomenal right now, because it's not going to be able to replace them. But we'll see. Skynet
Taking over.
taking over. Terminators
Well-
going back in time naked.
Naked. Going after some random
Robots.
little boy.
Where can people find us, Dylan?
They can
I was
find
the host,
us-
Billy. Shut the fuck up. Dylan, where can people find us?
Well, if by now Skynet hasn't taken over, you can find us on Spotify or any major podcast listening platform, as well as Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, where we stream weekly. Just what we thoughts.
All right.
What we thoughts,
With a good KD, you get the dub.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.